Welcome to myFace, myStory, voices from the craniofacial community, with your host, Dina Zuckerberg.
Hello, and welcome to myFace, myStory, voices from the craniofacial community. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on Apple Podcasts, click subscribe now so you'll never miss a future episode. And if you're a fan of myFace, myStory, rate and review the program on Apple Podcasts so we can get our message of inclusivity and empowerment to more people. I'm your host, Dina Zuckerberg, the Director of Family Programs at myFace. I was born with a cleft lip, a hearing loss, and no vision in my left eye. myFace, myStory is about people like us being seen and heard, about sharing stories within the craniofacial community and with others. Today, I will be joined by Ava Marie Beeler. Ava is 20 years old and lives in a small town in Connecticut. She was born with a rare genetic condition called Pfeiffer Syndrome type 2. She is currently a sophomore at Manchester Community College. She would love to become a psychologist one day and help others. She is an only child and enjoys spending time with her family. She also enjoys cooking all kinds of creative dishes for her family. She loves sharing her journey growing up with a facial difference and showing that she is not different from anyone else. Her dream is to run a therapy group for people who have facial differences and make them feel less alone. Welcome, Ava.
Hi.
Hi. I look forward to our conversation today.
Me too. I'm so excited.
Yes. So can you describe your craniofacial difference, Pfeiffer syndrome, in your own words?
Okay, so Pfeiffer Syndrome is a craniofacial condition that affects the bones in your facial structure, in your face, in your skull. Sometimes my skull, when I was born, was misshapen. It looked like a clover leaf. And sometimes people with Pfeiffer Syndrome are born hearing impaired.
Were you hearing impaired when you were born?
Yes, I've been hearing impaired since I was born. We did the newborn hearing test, and yeah.
Okay. How did your parents discover that you had Pfeiffer syndrome?
Okay, so 20 years ago, sonograms were very different. They weren't like the 3D ultrasounds that they are today, where you can see the baby's face and you know what everything, like you can see every facial feature, and it blows my mind sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So back in 20 years ago, in 2003, ultrasounds were still a little bit blurry. They were very blurry and they looked really different.
Right.
They looked, so it was really hard to tell. Based on what we were seeing, they noticed that my brain and my skull in particular looked misshapen. So my mother put two and two together with her knowledge at the time, thinking that maybe something was wrong with my brain. And so the doctors decided to deliver me via C-section 24 hours after my mother found out the news. And unfortunately, with the lack of medical knowledge on craniofacial conditions many years ago, they told my mom and dad that I had a very slim chance of surviving after birth. But hey, look at me now, 20 years later, and I'm still
they got
here.
that wrong, right?
They got that wrong.
So what happened to you after you were born?
So after I was born, I spent 3 months in the NICU at Hartford, Connecticut Hospital. Soon after that, though, my parents realized that I needed a higher level of care.
Right.
So what they did was they decided that they found doctors who could help with the craniofacial condition that I had, and it was a higher level medical team at NYU, which was really helpful because I have a lot of family in New York City. So if I ever had a surgery to go through, we were able to then go to my grandparents' house and stay over there after recovery time, which I appreciate to this day.
Right. And were you the first person in your family to be born with Pfeiffer syndrome? Was there a history of Pfeiffer syndrome in your family?
No,
Okay.
no, my family never heard of it. They never knew about it. Um, I've heard that when you are the carrier of Pfeiffer syndrome, I've heard that like you can have a baby, and when you do have a baby, you have like a 50% chance of
Right.
carrying that condition to your baby.
Right. I've heard that too. So what was school like for you growing up? What kind of school did you go to?
When I went to school, I lived in a small town, so everybody knew everybody. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I went to school, I never felt different from the other students. Yes, I had a trach. Yes, I had hearing aids. I had a nurse in school.
Right.
But I never felt different. And I think that I have to thank Laura and Malcolm, my parents, for making the condition and the fact that I look different from others not the focal point of my life.
Right. Right.
They treated me like they would treat any other child. They knew that I could do everything. I remember in classes, I would always participate. I always loved to participate. I made friends. I would say I wasn't shy because I was always confident.
Mm-hmm.
But when people had questions, I knew that it was just because of curiosity.
Right.
I never took it as an insult. Did it hurt a tiny bit? Yes.
Right.
But I never took it as an insult because we were in elementary school. So when someone would say to me, "Hey, what's on your neck?" I had a trach for 10 years. So, and I would just say, it's something to help me breathe.
Right. And sometimes people are just curious, right? If they've not seen it before, they just want to know what they're seeing. Yeah. So I know you've had 30 surgeries in 20 years, and that's a lot. Probably people don't realize that. How did you juggle school and hospital visits and surgeries all at once?
Day by day.
Right.
Just day by day. Basically, when I went to school, I was focused only on school. You know, we went to school, we lived a typical life that anybody else would live. Went to school, went with my nurses for 10 years of my life. When it came time to do a surgery, though, that was more nerve-wracking, I would say, because I have had anxiety since I was a child. So, I mean, probably since I was 3, if I can go back. I've always been nervous, so I would always count down the days. I would say the only way I juggled it was just day by day. If I had a doctor's visit, I didn't feel like it was an interruption to my life, or I didn't realize how overwhelming my childhood was until I became an adult, and suddenly it stopped, and I was like, whoa.
Right.
I had a crazy childhood, but to me, I didn't know anything else. So that was just what I knew. I didn't know anything else. I didn't compare it to anybody else's lives. You know, a lot of people were like, "Ava, how do you do it all?" And I'm like, I don't know. It's just, this is my life. So one day at a time.
Right.
You know, I didn't know anything else. But looking back now as an adult and 20 years old, I'm like, how did I do it all?
Right. Right.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked at 8 years old. I'm just doing surgeries and going to New York and then coming back home like nothing happened.
Right.
And
It's
then
because
next day
it's
I'm
the
in
life
school.
you knew. It's the only life you knew, right? And it's the
Yeah,
life.
it's the only
Yeah.
life I knew.
Yeah. So I think you kind of answered this, but did you feel there's anything you missed out on or anything you couldn't do because of your condition? Any
I would say
accompanying
that the,
medical
I
treatment?
would say that the only thing I couldn't do was like contact sports.
Right.
But that was just because I had, my head, it was because of my skull. I have a shunt in the back of a VP shunt in the back of my head. So, I had to be careful with any type of contact sports, but
Right.
that didn't stop me from living my life.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't stop. I joined other things. Thankfully, in high school, I joined something called Unified Sports, which was a club for people with disabilities who couldn't play contact sports. And so
That's
I
great.
just joined that club. But because I was much older and my medical stuff had sort of passed because they weren't as bad because I
Hmm.
was much older, I was like a coach. I was like a leader. I was
That's
helping
great.
somebody else. And that made me feel so good because it was like I was doing sports, but in a safer way.
Right. And it probably empowered you to,
Yes.
yeah.
Nothing really ever stopped me from doing stuff. And I would say that my mom and dad, they never ever made me feel like I couldn't do anything. We can do things, we have to adjust it to make it so that Ava can do it, or, Ava's going to do something, but she'll do it on what they call Ava time.
I have to say, my parents too, they always led me to believe I could do anything I wanted, and that was huge. And it sounds like your parents were exactly the same way.
Yes.
So, did you ever get stared at or questions about your appearance? And if so, how did you respond to that?
Well, like I said before, a lot of kids were very curious about why I had a trach because it is so like you can see it, it's so visible. So when people would say to me, Ava, what is that thing on your neck? Of course, that's like a weird question, but
Right,
and I was like, but they don't know what it is.
right. So they just want to
They've
know.
never seen it before. So I would just say, oh, it helps me breathe. Or the other question I get, and I still get this to this day, why do your eyes look so different?
Hmm.
Um, and the answer usually just is, oh, my eyes they're just different.
Right,
I I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to get into a long drawn out answer that someone's not going to understand. They're just unique, they're different,
right,
and that's okay.
right. And sometimes that's all they need to know. They just need to
Yeah,
understand it and move on.
I can't fully explain it, but they're still they make me me.
Right, exactly. So, how do you see yourself today when you look in the mirror?
I see so much. I
Mm,
see when I think about how far I've come in my life, I'm just amazed. I'm absolutely amazed that I've had more surgeries in my lifetime than anybody else will have
right.
ever.
Hmm.
I'm always, when I look at myself, I sometimes see my little self, like the little version of myself,
Mm,
because somehow, and everybody says this, I have friends who say this, Ava, you look exactly the same. And I'm like, thank you.
yeah. Right.
I do look the same. I look older, but certain features about me have stayed the same.
Right.
I do see a very strong and beautiful person when I look in the mirror. And I also see little glimpses of my parents, like
Right.
little characteristics of my mom and my dad. Because
Hmm.
for a while, when I was younger, my parents didn't even know who I looked like because they would respond with, she looks like Ava, because my characteristics were so unique. But as I'm getting older, I see myself starting to look like my beautiful mom.
Love that. So I know you have a passion for cooking. How did you discover cooking?
So I always had this interesting fascination with cooking shows.
Mm,
I'm not sure why. I love food. I love to eat. I feel like that has something to do with when I was a baby, and I was always fascinated with eating food and discovering food because I was on a G tube when I was a baby.
right.
So with that, any type of flavor that I could get in my mouth was interesting to me. So
Interesting.
that has something to do with it, but also like I always helped out my mom when I was a child, and I was always cooking food in the kitchen, like with her. And then suddenly I just started researching recipes, and then I just, it gives me a sense of peace, gives me a sense of happiness. I feel great when I do it. Yeah.
Well, I know you got to do a special burger
Yes.
recently.
Yes. I am so proud to say that at 19 years old, I was able to work with Handcraft Burgers and Brew in New York and be able to create something of my very own that I put my heart and soul into because I just love making food. And so to be able
Right.
to create my own burger and have it be featured in a restaurant for hundreds of people to taste is a dream come true.
It's pretty cool, no
Yes.
doubt. So you've been through a lot in 20 years, and I think sometimes the mental toll can be even harder in some ways than all the medical care. How has your mental health been impacted, would you say?
So I've been doing therapy since I was 13 years old. I was diagnosed later on with anxiety, depression, PTSD when I was 18. And honestly, I feel like I probably had PTSD way earlier in life,
Mhm.
but I just never knew what that feeling was. I do remember being really anxious, scared, really triggered by certain things, but I never understood why
Right.
until later in life. So it made me think for the past like 2 years, like, oh my gosh, I probably had this way earlier in life, but I just never knew what it was. I
Right.
also, for a while, I didn't know how to cope with strong feelings of sadness or anxiety. So I would suppress them and
Mhm.
make them go away and just pretend like nothing was there.
Right.
But now looking back, I'm like, that's not good. You sometimes in this journey, you just have to ride the emotions. If you're having a bad day or surgery is overwhelming, it is perfectly understandable to feel overwhelmed and just to sit with those feelings instead of suppressing them because
Right.
I had the problem of I would suppress them, but then later on I would go in my room and I would explode because I
Right.
was so overwhelmed. So, yes.
It's really great advice. As somebody, I grew up with a lot of anxiety in my life, and I think I too, I didn't quite know what it was or how to address it until I got much older. So it used to manifest in coughing attacks. So I would just and I learned over the years how to control it and breathing and looking out and all those things that really helped. And I used to get very anxious before surgeries, all of that. So I can totally relate to that piece. Uh, so, so you've been a part of the myFace adolescent group and now the adult group. How has that helped you?
That really, I feel like I've grown so much as a person throughout this group since I think I've been a part of the teen group since I was like, maybe, if I had to guess, probably around 16. I joined the group like before the pandemic even happened.
Right.
And I built so many connections with this group. It's so nice to meet people that are younger than me and older than me, but we all are going through similar paths, but we can all help each other with and treat each other with love and respect and kindness.
Right.
And I feel like it's helped me grow as a person, and it's made me discover that I have this gift of sharing my story and inspiring others to keep going and to never be afraid of who you are.
Right. And when we all share, it's like, oh, yeah, somebody else went through that same experience, and there really is power in that, in knowing you're not the only one. So,
Yeah.
so what advice would you give someone who might be struggling, like you have in the past, and is looking for a supportive community like myFace? What advice would you give them?
I have a lot of advice. One, when you're on social media, there's that option on Instagram where you can do private or public. I
Huh?
highly recommend doing private, maybe, just so that you can avoid like mean people. I think, my Instagram is on private, so,
Right.
and I also think that uh, doing research, finding people, like finding groups.
Mm-hmm.
Like I found myFace through NYU, which is great. I would say to keep, like, do research, find groups. Um, I would say keep social media. Be careful about who you're like requesting, or if my mom always told me, if you don't know the person, don't friend them.
Right.
I
Right.
think
Right.
that's a good rule. I'm thankful I still use that rule at 20.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't friend strangers. That's just not my thing. If you're struggling with your confidence, it gets better. You have some, I want to say, always be yourself.
Right.
Never change the person that you are just because of somebody that is mean to you or says something. People that love you and appreciate you will be supportive to you, even if it's like two or three people. That's like the best thing ever. I would say it does get better.
Right.
It's really hard. I understand. I go through it from time to time. I am a happy person, but I do go through times where I'm like, oh, I wish I was like so
Mm-hmm.
and so, or I wish I was like so and so, or I wish. And why would you want to be anybody different?
If that's
Embrace
who
who you
you
are.
are. Right.
It's so important to embrace who you are because you are amazing. And sometimes it takes time to figure out who you are and
Great
never,
advice.
ever dim your light.
I like that. So I know your dream, Ava, is to become a psychologist and one day run a therapy group for those with facial differences. Tell us more about that and why it's so important to you.
It's important to me because I never had that. I never had a role model growing up. Growing up in a small town, there was no one else with Pfeiffer Syndrome in my town. So I felt really alone, and it
Mm-hmm.
was a really lonely and isolating feeling because even though I would talk to my friends, none of my friends got it. None of my friends could understand what surgeries meant or what taking time off from school was. It's not a vacation. It's not a vacation. It's such a mental and overwhelming toll.
Right.
I just happen to be able to find the bright side in all of it. I want to be that mentor for somebody. I want to be someone's advocate. I want someone to, I know people look up to me right now. Um, I know I want people to look up to me. I hope that I can help people out there and show people their worth and show people that they can do whatever they want, that they think possible. And I want to spread love and kindness.
I love it. So you're so talkative and outgoing now. Would you say you've always been that way, or was there a turning point when you went from that shy person to a more outgoing and confident
I
person?
wouldn't say that I was shy, but
Mm-hmm.
I definitely would say that I was someone who went down my own path. I mean, I was an only child, so sometimes being around other kids, I would be like, I want to go home.
Right, right.
I need my own space. I'm still that way at 20. I need my
Mm-hmm.
own space. But, I was always friendly. I was always kind. If you're kind to me, I'll be kind to you. That's my motto in life. Um, I've always been confident, thank God.
That's great.
I am so thankful to be confident. I would say that it's I started to evolve in high school when medical things weren't as a big deal. I was finding friends that were older than me because at my school, 9 through 12, like you could be in a classroom with a 10th grader or senior and be friends. And that's what's so cool. So, like, if I didn't get along with some of the peers in my grade, I was still able to find friends that were older than
Mm-hmm.
me. But they never treated me any differently. Like, oh, you're just a freshman. No, no, they
Right,
thought they thought I was so cool because we're all going down the same path. We all
right.
want to graduate high school, so let's help one another. And I'm lucky that I found a community of friends that were so nice to me and that I still keep in touch with
Right.
today.
I always say all it takes is one friend, right? To find just
One
a
friend,
small group.
I
Yeah,
have it.
yeah,
I'm so lucky.
that is. So, knowing what you know now, what is one thing that you would tell your younger self?
You did it.
Yeah, right?
Like you did it. Like everything that anybody ever told you, like you you thought that because when I was a kid, I was so worried about achieving things. I have achieved more than I could have ever dreamed of in my wildest dreams. Like I never thought that I would win a burger competition or get to publish my own article and find my voice through myFace and be able to share my story with others is so powerful and inspiring. And I hope that anybody watching this, parents, kids, it one day at a time, every day is a new day. And, no matter what, your kid is going to hit their milestones.
Absolutely. And you've got your whole life ahead of you, Ava, and I can't wait to see what's to come.
Yeah.
So I know you call yourself Awesome Ava, which I
Mhm.
love. What do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think makes you awesome?
My confidence.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think it's my confidence. I think it's the way that I'm so positive. I'm so grateful that even now I still manage to find a positive in everything. Even when I'm going through a tough time, I have to remind myself that it does get easier, it does get better. And I'm so happy that I have so much confidence in myself to do anything that I want in life, even if it's on my own timeline of things. That's okay.
Right.
I've achieved more than I ever dreamed possible at
Right.
20. And I'm so young that I can't wait to see what happens in 10 years or even 5. It's
I can't
crazy.
wait either. I can't wait, and I know there's more to come from Awesome Ava. So.
Yes.
So, Ava, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us today. I can't believe how quick that went by.
Mhm.
I do think you are truly awesome, and it has been such a joy to watch you blossom from the beautiful young woman to who you are today. And I look forward to seeing where your journey takes you into the future. And
Thank
I
you,
have, And I have no doubt that you will be an advocate for the craniofacial community for years to come. So thank you, Ava.
Thank you.
Ava is such an inspiration to me and everyone else she meets. Everyone has a story, and I'm hopeful that by sharing stories like Ava's, we can create a kinder world. For more than 70 years, myFace has been dedicated to changing the faces and transforming the lives of children and adults with facial differences by providing access to holistic comprehensive care, education, resources, and support that pave the way for better outcomes. To learn more, please visit myface.org. If you would like to learn more about the myFace support groups that we talked about today, you can connect with others in the craniofacial community. Please visit myface.org/online-groups. Be sure to subscribe to myFace, myStory on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube to get notified of our next episode. If you'd like to receive email reminders of new episodes, sign up at myface.org/mystory. That's myface.org/mystory. Thank you for joining us for this episode of myFace, myStory. Remember, it takes courage to share your story, so be brave and speak out.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Paul, the Executive Director of myFace. myFace is a nonprofit organization dedicated to changing the faces and transforming the lives of children and adults with facial differences. We do this through various programs and events such as the Transforming Lives educational webinar series, Races for Faces, the Wonder Project, and the groundbreaking myFace, myStory conversational series. You can learn more about all of these on our website at myface.org. If you enjoyed today's program, we hope you'll consider making a donation to help keep programs like this possible, as well as to further the support of the craniofacial community. Thank you.